The burn left more than marks on my hand, it left a memory I could never erase. I stayed in my room that afternoon, holding my injured hand under cold water, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the mental storm brewing inside me. Her words replayed over and over, echoing in the corners of my mind, useless, useless, useless. Every syllable stoked a fire that I couldn't let go of. I realized then that her anger wasn't just about the soup or the chores, it was about control. And for the first time I understood that control could be challenged. I clenched my fists, promising myself that I wouldn't remain powerless. I remember that day like it was etched in fire. The smell of chicken soup filled the kitchen, warm and comforting to anyone else, but not to me. Mom's face was twisted in frustration, her eyes sharp and accusing. "You're useless," she snapped, and before I could react, the scalding liquid touched my skin. Pain seared through my hand, but worse than the burn was the humiliation, the sting of her words cutting deeper than any fire could. Tears pricked my eyes, but I swallowed them, refusing to let her see me crumble. Deep down, though, a spark ignited, a quiet fury that simmered beneath the surface. That moment wasn't the end, it was a beginning. A beginning that she could never have imagined. The next few days were tense. Every interaction with Mom was like walking on shattered glass. She didn't apologize, didn't even acknowledge what she'd done, and that silence was worse than her rage. I watched her, studied her habits, her moods, every word, every twitch, as if preparing for a battle she didn't know was coming. Friends noticed my distant behavior, but I couldn't explain it, I couldn't let anyone in on the secret storm brewing. I became a shadow in my own home, quiet, careful, patient. Every time she scolded me, the fire inside me burned brighter. I realized that real strength wasn't in fighting back immediately, it was in waiting for the perfect moment. Then came the day I discovered a hidden strength I never knew I had. I was alone in the kitchen, practicing a trick with a small portable stove, heating water with precision and control. Every drop, every steam puff, I studied it, learning how fire behaved, how heat could be tamed. That small act felt like taking back my power, piece by piece. I felt no fear, only control, and it was intoxicating. I smiled to myself, realizing that the heat she thought she wielded over me could now become my weapon, not to hurt, but to command respect. I was no longer the child who screamed silently under her anger, I was someone else entirely. Weeks passed, and Mom continued her usual scolding, oblivious to the storm growing inside me. I stayed calm, polite, almost submissive, but my mind was a laboratory of plans. Every harsh word she threw, every glance of disappointment, I noted it, storing it like ammunition. She thought I was broken, that her words had scorched my spirit permanently, but she was wrong. Her anger had only sharpened me. Every time she raised her voice, I imagined the tables turning, imagined her astonishment when she realized that the fire she tried to give me was the very thing I learned to control. The opportunity came unexpectedly. She spilled her anger on me one evening, louder and harsher than ever, blaming me for something I hadn't done. But this time I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I stood tall, steady, my hand now healed but stronger in more ways than one. I spoke calmly, almost eerily, "Mom, do you know what real heat feels like?" Her eyes widened, confusion crossing her face. I held a small pot of steaming water, careful, controlled, but the symbolism was clear. The heat she had poured on me years ago was nothing compared to the calm command I now held. She had underestimated me. Her shock was immediate, but I didn't stop there. I explained, step by step, how pain shapes people, how words cut deeper than fire, and how control can be reclaimed when least expected. I told her how every insult, every lash of anger, had forged a part of me she could never break again. I saw guilt flicker in her eyes, but it wasn't enough to undo the lessons of my own resilience. I realized then that power isn't about hurting others, it's about commanding yourself. And in that kitchen, standing over the same counter where she had humiliated me, I tasted victory, not the satisfaction of revenge, but the triumph of surviving, thriving, and mastering my own fire. From that day forward, nothing was ever the same. Mom never poured another pot of soup on my hand, nor did she ever use the word useless against me again. But the most important change wasn't in her, it was in me. I had learned to walk through flames without fear, to turn pain into strength, and to realize that no one can define your worth but you. The memory of that day stayed with me, but it no longer burned me, it empowered me. Every time I felt doubt, I remembered the moment she thought she held all the heat, only to discover that the real fire lived within me all along.